The internet is a vast place. Nearly any question that comes to mind can be answered with a simple keystroke. Any curiosity can be quelled with a simple search term. And yet, when we hit enter and look upon the very answer we sought out to find, many of us experience a very peculiar kind of cognitive dissonance. The answer you sought out is grotesque and disturbing. And yet, you can't look away, and you don't know why. It's almost like coming to grips with our morbid reality is a task fit for no one. Misery loves company. Despair can never exist in a vacuum. Keep these thoughts in mind for the story that I'm about to tell you, because this man, Jack Graham, is the embodiment of both sentiments. John Gilbert Graham was born on January 23, 1932, in Denver, Colorado. His mother's name is Daisy Graham, and she had her son with her second husband, whose name is unknown. Unfortunately, Daisy Graham had to raise Jack during the Great Depression. Already, Daisy didn't have any money, and unfortunately, her husband couldn't contribute either. 5 years after Jack was born, his father would die from pneumonia, and this was 1937, the literal height of the Great Depression. His mother simply could not take care of Jack, so she made a decision to drop him off at an orphanage and never see him again. In 1941, his mother chose to remarry, this time to someone named Earl King, who shortly died after their marriage. Using her inheritance from King's death, Daisy became a successful businesswoman. She was able to use that money to establish many restaurants, and although she's established herself as a wealthy woman, she never reclaimed Jack. He remained at the orphanage until he was 18 years old, and once he wanted to reconnect with his mom, the relationship became estranged. He felt that she had abandoned him, and any time in public that they were seen talking, it was always an argument. This backstory is important to establish because his childhood and his estrangement from his mom established a motive for his next action. At 6:52 p.m. on November 1st, 1955, the United Airlines Flight 629, with 44 people on board, was planning on flying from Denver, Colorado to Portland, Oregon. Approximately 11 minutes into the flight, 39 passengers, including an infant and 5 crew members, were dead. Graham, moments before the flight took off, stashed a bomb on board with the intention to kill his mom, who was on board, and receive insurance money from her death. The insurance claim was approximately $37,500, which is equivalent to $380,000 in today's money. No one knows exactly how the bomb got onto the plane, but they do know that Graham was involved because the bomb was suspiciously similar to a firebomb at one of his mother's restaurants. And coincidentally, that restaurant was insured under his name. He collected some money for that restaurant burning down. The criminal trial that ensued was the first ever in the state's history to be televised. And interestingly enough, there was no federal statute on the books at the time, 1955, that made it a crime to blow up an airplane. So the judge decided to prosecute Graham with one murder, his mother. There was evidence of premeditation because he designed and placed the bomb on board with the expectation that she'd die, and she did. Jack Gilbert Graham was sentenced to death for his crime and executed on January 11th, 1957. His execution method was the gas chamber. This is Jessica and Daniel Groves, and they're both drug addicts. Their consistent abuse of drugs led to them neglecting their child and preferring drug use over parenting. This is 2-month-old Dylan Groves, and custody over him was withdrawn from his parents because a doctor observed and identified methamphetamines being found in his blood. His parents took an offense to losing custody over their child. Even though it was temporary, they didn't want that to ever happen again, but at the same time, they didn't want to have a child either. Dylan was killed in late March of 2020. Nobody knows how, because his body wasn't found until June. His body was placed in between 2 milk crates and weighed down with chains and thrown into a lake. The autopsy report noted that he had rib fractures, leg fractures, and skull fractures. And after being arrested relatively quickly after Dylan was discovered, an Ohio jury convicted the couple of multiple charges in the death of their infant son. Unfortunately, the length of their sentencing was not released to the public, but it's safe to assume that both of them will be in prison for a long time because they received 11 counts of murder each. This is John Huron, born January 25th, 1981, and he's of Swedish and Czech descent. And in this image of him, he's 14 years old. And on one night, he was camping with a friend. They had a fire going by a small lake near a town named Kode in the Kunglov municipality. While the two teens were minding their business and having some fun, 4 young men approached them, ages between 15 and 18. The men had ties to the small National Socialist subculture and had bullied John for some time in school, and it wasn't different in this situation. They were beating up on him, kicking him in the ribs and punching him in the face, attempting to force him to say that he loved National Socialists. John refused. He didn't believe in their ideology and didn't want to be bullied anymore, so he chose to hold his ground. But these men kept beating him. At one point, they picked him up and threw him into the lake and forced him to swim back to shore, and if he didn't, they threatened to beat up his friend instead. He didn't want that, so he chose to swim back. Once at the shore, they continued to beat him, so much so that he had multiple broken bones, and after they were done, they chose to pick him up again and throw him into the lake. This time, John had no strength left to swim or keep himself above water, so he drowned. The young men quickly left the scene, all while Christian called the police and attempted to get some help. The boys were quickly caught. The subculture was known in the town, and Christian positively identified the teens who were involved. The 18-year-old ringleader was sent to 8 years in prison for murder. So did the 15-year-old boy. He was sent to 5 years youth imprisonment for murder. The other 2 young men who were involved were sentenced to less than a year in prison for murder. John's story was spread throughout the entire town, and he was awarded the Stig Dagerman Award for free speech because of his actions of not giving in to the 4 young men who tried to beat him for his beliefs. This is Leon Davis Jr. He's 33 years old and a nobody. Yet he garners a reputation, a seriously infamous one in the state of Florida. You see, Leon Davis Jr. likes to harm people, typically innocent people who just happen to be in his way. And on December 7th, 2007, he began working on that infamous reputation. Leon chose to enter a gas station at night along Interstate 4 in Polk County. Once he entered the gas station, he encountered 2 workers. Their names were Pravin Kumar Patel, 33 years old, and 55-year-old Dashrath Patel. After Leon walked up to the counter, he brandished a pistol in front of their faces and asked for money. And quickly after that, he shot both men in the face. Quickly, police were alerted that there were shootings at the gas station, and interestingly enough, Leon didn't steal any money. He just decided to murder the store clerks and then walk out the store. Unfortunately, this isn't the end to Leon Davis's story. 6 days later, Leon decided to rob a nationwide insurance office in Lake Wales, which was run by 26-year-old Yvonne Bustamante, whom Davis actually knew, and 23-year-old Juanita Luciana, who was 5.5 months pregnant. Once inside, at gunpoint, he forced both women into the back office and threatened them to open up the safe. $900 was stashed inside, and Leon stole that. Quickly after stealing the money, he taped Juanita and Yvonne together. They sat back to back on chairs, and then he doused both of them in gasoline and lit them on fire. Police officers and firefighters were on their way quickly, though. People had reported that there was a fire burning at the nationwide office, and interestingly enough, the fire burned through the tape, giving both Yvonne and Juanita a chance to survive. But unfortunately, once the police and fire department arrived, both women were already critically injured. Both women were quickly hospitalized, and Juanita was the one who pointed out Davis as the perpetrator before she succumbed to her injuries and died. Yvonne would soon pass away too, and Davis would be charged with an additional 2 murders on top of the 2 that he committed at the gas station. The trial was swift. Davis actually turned himself in after those 2 murders, and he would be convicted of 5 counts of first-degree murder, 2 counts of attempted first-degree murder, 1 count of robbery, 1 count of attempted robbery with arson, and 6 counts of grand theft. And he was given the death sentence for all of these crimes. He was executed on April 29th, 2011. This is Shannon Kepler. He's a member of the Tulsa Police Department, and his story begins in 2014. He and his wife Gina were having a difficult time with their adopted daughter Lisa. So instead of working with her and trying to build a relationship, they waited until she was 18 and dropped her off at a homeless shelter. They didn't want anything to do with her. They simply didn't want to be parents anymore because of her behavior. They dropped her off at the homeless shelter without any personal possessions, including money, cell phone, credit cards, or clothes. She was supposed to just fend for herself and build a life without any help. Months pass, and Gina gets a boyfriend. Her father, Shannon, was alarmed by that. You see, he found out that his adopted daughter was dating through her Facebook account. She had changed her status from single to being in a relationship. She had met and started dating a volunteer that was working at the homeless shelter, and his name was Jeremy Lake. He was 19 years old. While still on active duty at the Tulsa Police Department, Shannon requested a records clerk to search police databases to gather information on Lake before printing out the police records about him. He learned that Lake was a victim of child abuse at a very young age and was previously charged as a juvenile after pushing a social services worker. These charges were eventually dropped. All of those things weren't necessarily alarming to Shannon. He didn't care about the 19-year-old's background, he cared about the 19-year-old's race. Jeremy Lake was mixed race, and Shannon Kepler didn't want his daughter dating him. So Shannon decided to do something about it. He pulled up to Lake's Tulsa address, and around 9 p.m. on August 5th, Kepler observed his daughter and Lake walk together with some of their friends and approached them in bid to talk to his daughter. She had no interest in speaking to him and accompanied Lake into his house. Jeremy Lake would attempt to introduce himself to Shannon, but Shannon pulled out his service revolver and shot him twice. Jeremy died instantly. Shannon then decided to turn around quickly and fire at everyone that saw the shooting. The witnesses that he fired at included his daughter and Jeremy's 13-year-old little brother. Shannon quickly jumped into his SUV and fled the scene. In court, he said he fled the scene because he knew his fellow police officers were going to look for him. He also said that the shooting was self-defense, stating that Jeremy got the jump on him, and Shannon also asserted that he saw Jeremy pull out a pistol from his waistband. Police officers and investigators said that there was no pistol at the scene. It would take 3 years for his trial to begin, and at the age of 61 he was found guilty of murder and sentenced to 25 years in prison. This is a gibbet. It's a gallows-type structure from which dead or dying bodies of criminals were hanged on public display to deter other existing potential criminals. Occasionally, the gibbet was also used as a method of execution, with the criminal being left to die of exposure, thirst, or starvation. This is the gibbet of Montfaucon. It was the main gallows and gibbet of the kings of France until the time of Louis XIII. It was a very large structure, and it was used to execute criminals, often traitors, by hanging and to display their dead bodies as a warning to the population. It was located on a small hill in Paris and first built in the late 13th century, and it was used until 1629 and dismantled in 1760. It appears in the backgrounds of multiple paintings of Paris, including this one that depicts the St. Bartholomew's Day massacre in 1572. And during that massacre, the body of a high-ranking admiral named Gaspard II was slain, and his body was dragged on top of that small hill and displayed in the gibbet. He was hung upside down by the feet, and his body was left there to rot until it fell off the rope. Imagine for a moment that someone breaks into your house. You hear them rummaging around your stuff, throwing things into a bag, breaking things, and you have no means to protect yourself. What's the first thing that you do? A lot of people think to escape, right? This woman did. She chose to escape from her bedroom window onto the roof with the intention to jump off and escape. At this point, police officers were on their way, and the men and women of the neighborhood were watching this entire ordeal go down. And at the start, it seemed that she was going to be able to get away, but this photo says otherwise. Immediately after she crawled out of the window, the assailant followed her out. He's holding a weapon with the full intention of finding her and harming her, and the only thing that she can do is hide under the roof, hoping that he doesn't find her, hoping that he would go back inside. Unfortunately, I don't have any more information for you. Nobody knows if she got away safely. Nobody knows if she was harmed. But what we do know is that she was terrified and all out of options. What's up, everybody? It's your boy Ailurus, aka Panda Daddy, and I hope you enjoyed today's video. And if you did, let me know in the comments down below, and leave a like if you liked the video. And if you're new to my channel, go ahead and subscribe, fam. What you doing watching videos and not subscribing? And if you're old, make sure you hit that bell so you get these notifications every time. I know you guys have been looking forward to r/MorbidReality 11, and I wanted to drop it on Saturday instead of Friday because I wanted to put some extra time into it, and a lot of you guys were looking forward to it. I also wanted to upload this video on the day that I uploaded the first 3 videos to my second channel, Ailurus After Hours. If you really like morbid reality content, if you really like true crime content, dark history, scary stories, whatsoever, feel free to take a look at the channel because it's meant for y'all. It's exclusively dark content. And yeah, if you want to click the links in the description, they're already up, they're already available, and the channel is live. I seriously hope you guys enjoy it, and as always, we gotta thank the Patreon supporters that make content like this possible. A big thank you to Screaming Cloaker, Unikitty, Carter Not Steve, The Fake Musician, Lightstar, Red Pyramid Thing, Buckethead, Samantha Bellhart, Admin, AV8B Harrier 2 Plus, Swag Daddy 69, Zach F, Darth Titan, Fafnir Stuff, Keely, Dunder Has Hawk, Caroline Banana, Spiritus Kitsune, Soup, Viva LaRue, Julian, Benny's Big Bean Burrito, Knobs, Lady Laughs a Lot, Swiss Patreon user, Muffy Lou Who, Noah, John Robinson, and Catherine Taylor. Thank you so much for your support. It is greatly appreciated. And if you want to help support the channel, there's two links in the description, one on my merch store and one on my Patreon. Both funds go to the channel so we can maintain what's happening here. And as always, stay zesty.